This year, there will be, as our Director General said, 2 Swiss researchers receiving their Nobel Prizes right behind us in the Stockholm City Hall. They discovered the very first exoplanet orbiting a distant sun. And interesting, as Sven mentioned, that was not their original plan. But their discovery started a revolution within astronomy. And today there are over 4,000 exoplanets found in the Milky Way galaxy. I think that's mind-blowing that we can see this far. So congratulations to Switzerland, a country with a strong international impact in research and hosting some of the world's most reputed research universities and research infrastructures. So please welcome Martina Hirayama, State Secretary for Education, Research and Innovation in Switzerland. So welcome, and we are very glad to have you here, and please share with us your secrets.
Thank you very much also for your congratulations. Of course, we are very proud on our 2 researchers receiving the Nobel Prize and being here in Stockholm beginning of December. Dear ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to attend the Research Policy Day 2019. I very much appreciate being given the opportunity to be here among you today. In the globalized world in which we live, open dialogue across borders is more important than ever. And cross-border cooperation is particularly necessary. We must be realistic. No country, no matter how competitive in terms of knowledge and expertise, is able to face the challenges of our time by itself. Digital transformation is having a profound effect on individuals, society, and the international economy. Climate change and the threat to biodiversity questions the pursuit of economic growth. Globalization and shifts in global powers are intellectual challenges faced by Switzerland as well as other countries, including Sweden. Further issues to grapple with include trade, migration, social cohesion, and demographic change. This is one reason why Switzerland is heavily involved in international research and innovation cooperation. Top-level research and innovation take place in a global competitive environment. In Switzerland, we try to focus on excellence and on being open to the world in order to participate in the broadest possible way in research and innovation. Your country, ladies and gentlemen, is similar in a variety of ways, and this is why we have so many points in common and are natural partners. As I understand it, contributing to the international community also involves pursuing open dialogue in research and innovation policy, and hence explain the chosen approach to research and innovation. However, I do not believe that national recipes can be applied directly in other countries. For one very good reason. At least in developed countries, there is no blank page on which national research and innovation policies can simply be rewritten, as they are already in place and have their own history, tradition, and logic. The same is true for each country's culture. We know that Europe's diversity makes our real strengths. What is more, there are many different successful research and innovation policies. A look at the most frequently cited rankings and scoreboards reveals only very slight differences between the top 20 countries. Yet among these top 20, there are countries that could not be more different in terms of their size, their history, their culture, or in particular, the way in which they are organized politically. The fact that Singapore, Hong Kong, the US, Sweden, and Switzerland top the 2019 World Competitiveness Ranking with very little differences between them suggests that there are indeed various paths to success. Nonetheless, we can all learn from each other and consider or even adapt practices that have been tried and tested elsewhere. Here I would like to highlight some aspects of Switzerland's recipe for a successful research and innovation policy. First, a cautious attitude towards having an innovation policy as such. Second, a high degree of autonomy for funding agencies, universities, and research institutions. Third, the right mix in higher education policy between cooperation and national competition. Fourth, recognition of the value of dual-track vocational education and training. Let me explain these points in more detail. Let me start with the last point that I consider as crucial. In Switzerland, 2 of 3 young people choose to do an apprenticeship following compulsory schooling. As a result, our practical education as well as our higher education are of an exceptionally high quality. In Switzerland, over 60% of university students are enrolled in a university that features among the top 200 in the Shanghai ranking. In the UK, the figure is 30%, in Germany 20%, and in the US under 20%. Unfortunately, I do not know the figure for Sweden. However, also just 20% of school leavers obtain the academic baccalaureate and go directly on to university. This does not mean that Switzerland sacrifices vocational education and training so that universities can be more successful, nor that VAT somehow has a lower social status. On the contrary, VAT, vocational education and training, enjoys a very high reputation in Switzerland. Secondly, the whole of our education system is based on the premise that all qualifications allow to continue studies in highly permeable systems. Let me give you an example to illustrate this. In Switzerland, a 16-year-old can decide to do an apprenticeship as an electrician. With the right degree of motivation and interest, he or she then study for the professional baccalaureate exam, which permits to apply to a University of Applied Sciences, perhaps to study electrical engineering. Having only 20% of school leavers with an academic baccalaureate in our system, 52% of 25 to 34-year-olds hold a tertiary education diploma, thanks to the permeability of our education system. Other countries also have vocational education and training systems, but the particularity of Switzerland is a dual-track system. Vocational education and training is primarily organized by the different economic sectors, with the majority of time spent gaining practical experience in a host company. In parallel, learners attend a vocational school part-time where they acquire the theoretical knowledge they require for their chosen occupation. They are practitioners in areas in which jobs are available and markets are strong, as logically these are the fields in which training places are offered. Second, high degree of autonomy for funding agencies, universities, and research institutions. Companies and universities share some similar needs, such as highly qualified staff, clear and favorable rules and regulations to ensure fair competition, links to the international community, and what is sufficient funding for universities are favorable innovation conditions for companies. These are the ideal conditions that Swiss federal education, research, and innovation policy aims to create. For example, the government promotes basic research via the Swiss National Science Foundation, which has total freedom in its selection criteria and its selection decisions. The Swiss National Science Foundation's mandate is to promote excellence in all scientific fields, irrespective of day-to-day political business. Why? Because nobody knows today what important or marketable ideas might emerge from basic knowledge in the future. Swiss universities contribute to the public-private partnership and to innovation by conducting bottom-up research in a broad range of topics in order to generate new knowledge. The private sector, for its part, observes the resulting academic knowledge and adapts and applies it where possible, transforming it into marketable products, processes, or business models. I come to the third point, the right mix between national cooperation and national competition in higher education and research policy. Especially in countries with an Anglo-Saxon model, the university landscape is clearly dominated by private providers. The situation is different in Switzerland, where, with very few exceptions, universities are public. In our federalist system, they are run either by the federal government, the two federal institutes of technologies, ETH Zurich and EPF Lausanne, or by the individual cantons, 7 universities of applied sciences and 10 universities. The Swiss cantons can be compared to Sweden's provinces. This federalist setting does not come cheap, and there is considerable political debate over whether international success is more likely to be achieved through either national cooperation or concentration or domestic competition. In a strong form, neither scenario seems right to us. Both have their pros and cons depending on the situation. Concentrating research activities at national level can produce excellent results. But it can also lead to monopolies. And monopolies, as we know all too well from the business world, create fewer incentives to be innovative. However, concentration can also be highly effective, as competences in research in a given field can otherwise become dispersed and give rise to provincialism. This is one reason why 20 years ago the government introduced the National Centers for Competence in Research, or NCCRs. These focus the available expertise in a specific field across a range of institutions. An NCCR requires the institutions involved to commit to long-term, far-reaching financial responsibility. The government co-finances the NCCRs for a 10-year period. The institutions commit themselves to achieving top-level research for Switzerland. The cutting edge of science generated in the research community from the bottom up and evaluated by an international panel. High-quality scientific publications, cooperative projects between higher education institutions and businesses, and startups resulted by the NCCRs. Here are 3 examples of the 20 NCCRs currently ongoing. Materials Revolution, computational design and discovery of novel materials. Another one on digital fabrication, advanced building processes in architecture. And the third example on the move, the Migration Mobility Nexus and NCCR in the field of social sciences. As national centers which enjoy huge scientific success, the NCCRs have developed a reputation which enables them to attract talented scientists from all over the world, thereby giving a further boost to research in Switzerland. After the end of the NCCRs, these researchers often move on to other destinations. This is our contribution to brain circulation. Over a dozen new research centers have been set up as a result of an NCCR. And now I want to come back to the first point I stated, a cautious approach to innovation policy. Switzerland, unlike many other countries, does not have an explicit innovation policy. Sometimes we even say that it is our policy not to have an innovation policy. Instead, we focus on implicit measures to promote innovative activity. Compulsory schooling is public and free to everyone. The government co-funds the system of vocational education and training, which is run by the cantons and professional organizations. The two federal institutes of technology in Zurich and Lausanne, which lead the Swiss higher education institutions in international rankings, are government funded. The government is the main funder of basic research, for which it may set a general thematic area in which research is to be conducted, but without defining specific research topics. This is the case with the outstanding research conducted in the National Centers for Competence in Research already described, or, for example, the energy research conducted followed the nuclear disaster at Fukushima. Also, the latter was part of a program of special measures. The government nonetheless did not specify the research topics, but trusted the science community to select them. The government also funds an important institution I have not yet mentioned, the Innovation Promotion Agency InnoSwiss. It provides a link between knowledge creators in the public sector, usually our universities of applied sciences, and private sector entities interested in a public-private partnership. In order to prevent potential market distortions, InnoSwiss, as a rule, only provides financial support to the participating higher education institution and not to the company or startup involved. Finally, the federal government is the honest broker and enabler for Swiss players in the field of education, research, and innovation when it comes to international cooperation. The European Union member states and other European countries are Switzerland's most important partners. Sweden is without doubt one of them. The European Framework Program, the Euratom Program, CERN, the European Space Agency, the European Southern Observatory, and the European Spallation Source in Lund are just a few examples of where our two countries and our researchers work closely together. In addition, through the hosting of the European Spallation Source in Lund for Sweden, and so the hosting of CERN in Geneva for Switzerland, both our countries take special responsibilities towards the broader development of such instrument of international cooperation. Indeed, Switzerland and Sweden have been working very closely together in research for many years. Our bilateral activities may often take place under the radar, as we do not have a complete overview of the connections between universities in our two countries. Along with having freedom of research, Swiss universities are free to enter into national, bilateral, and multilateral partnerships in areas of their interest. We know from the statistics of Horizon 2020 that Switzerland and Sweden currently have over 460 joint research projects in the European Union Framework Program. This makes Sweden Switzerland's eighth most important international cooperation partner in research. When looking at the bilateral research cooperation partners funded by the Swiss National Science Foundation, Sweden is Switzerland's 9th most important partner in Europe and its 12th most important worldwide. Swiss-Swedish cooperation takes place in a range of research fields, particularly in mathematics, natural sciences, engineering, and health sciences. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that I could give you some insight, some idea of the system of education, research, and innovation in Switzerland. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for this interesting overview of the Swiss system. It's interesting as you highlight that no countries are alike. We have two very successful countries with completely different approaches. Mm-hmm. And it's also interesting to hear that you really stick to the bottom-up approach. However, you were mentioning the NCCRs now turning into migration. Is this a way of you to handle this balance between the known challenges and the unknown challenges? Are you starting to forming clusters in known challenges areas?
So for us, the question of the right balance between bottom-up and top-down approach is a very important one, because we are really strongly focused on the bottom-up approach. For example, the NCCRs, every 4 years we have the possibility to apply for an NCCR. But we as a government, we do not set the topics. So it's really a bottom-up approach. And we have different selection criteria. So first, there is a scientific excellence. And the Swiss National Science Foundation is responsible for the evaluation with international panels. And then in the end of the procedure, we also add political aspects. So let's say if we have, for example, 10 or 15 excellent applications for NCCRs, and we have money to finance 5. Then we have a look at the political priorities, and in this way we influence the topics.
That's the very last step.
Yes.
Ah, that's interesting. I'm also wondering, you host one of the world's most well-known research infrastructure, the CERN. What impact does that have on Swiss research and industry?
Yes, I think it's, if you have such an infrastructure in your country, of course, it's very interesting for the researchers. They have short ways to use the infrastructure, but still the measuring time, of course, is equal to all the other international partners. But I think you are closer to this, and you will realize this probably with ESS as well. And also the idea of startup companies in this context might develop there. And one example looking at CERN is the World Wide Web. Yes. It was developed at CERN for a completely different purpose, and now it's used worldwide. So I wouldn't say that Switzerland has a particular advantage of the World Wide Web. I think it's very important for us, like for Sweden and other countries. But yes, I think this proximity helps also to that this kind of research communities grow at Swiss universities.
And you can assume that some of the first people to log into the web were in Switzerland. So Do you have any challenges in the Swiss research system?
I think we have probably quite similar challenges like other countries. I think one challenge is that we are really quite good positioned in all these different kind of rankings for research, for innovation. And so it's important not to be happy with the results and to think if we do everything in the same way we do it now, it will be perfect, because this is not the case. The world is changing. We have to change as well. And it's not so easy to convince that change is necessary if everything looks quite perfect. And of course, we have challenges in the context of digital transformation, sustainability, equal opportunities. These are also topics we defined for our next dispatch in education, research, and innovation as topics for all the different areas of our dispatch. And entrepreneurship.
Yes.
We could be a little bit more risk-friendly in Switzerland to try new things. I think there we have to work, and international cooperation. So we are completely committed to the free movement of people with the European Union, and but still we are not members, so we have to work hard to be able to be partners, to deliver our part, and to be accepted in the community.
It sounds like you have a lot of work to do, although it sounds like a very nice challenge to be the best.
We are not the best, but we are doing well.
So thank you very much once again with a big applaud.